Your body doesn't lie about relationships the way your mind does. While you're making excuses for their hot and cold behavior, analyzing their childhood trauma, and convincing yourself that their emotional unavailability is something you can heal with enough patience and understanding, your nervous system is screaming danger signals that you've been trained to ignore. The headaches, the insomnia, the digestive issues, the constant anxiety, these aren't coincidences or signs of your own instability. They're your body's intelligent response to being in a relationship that creates chronic stress instead of safety. Living with an avoidant partner puts your nervous system in a state of perpetual emergency, constantly scanning for threats, preparing for abandonment, and trying to regulate emotions that their inconsistent behavior keeps destabilizing. Your body treats their mixed signals like incoming missiles, their withdrawal like potential death, and their emotional unavailability like a survival threat that requires constant vigilance and preparation for fight or flight. The cruel irony is that while you're exhausting yourself trying to create security with someone who specializes in creating chaos, your nervous system is slowly breaking down from the chronic stress of loving someone whose attachment style is fundamentally incompatible with your body's need for predictable, consistent connection. You're not too sensitive, too needy, or too anxious. You're having normal physiological responses to abnormal relationship dynamics. Your body knows what your heart refuses to accept, that relationships should regulate your nervous system, not dysregulate. It should create calm, not constant crisis. Should feel like coming home, not like walking through a minefield. The physical symptoms you're experiencing aren't signs that you need to be stronger or more understanding. They're urgent messages from your biology telling you that this dynamic is literally damaging your health. The stress response cycle, how your body reacts to hot and cold behavior. Your nervous system evolved to handle acute stress, short bursts of danger followed by periods of safety and recovery. But living with an avoidant partner creates something your body was never designed to handle: chronic, unpredictable stress that keeps you trapped in a perpetual cycle of activation and vigilance without ever reaching true resolution or safety. Their hot and cold behavior creates a stress response pattern that's more damaging than consistent conflict, because your body can never predict when the next emotional threat will emerge. When your avoidant partner is warm, affectionate, and emotionally available, your nervous system begins to relax and move toward a state of calm connection. Your stress hormones decrease, your heart rate stabilizes, and your body starts to believe that it's safe to let down its guard and enjoy intimate connection. But this relaxation is precisely when they typically withdraw, creating a jarring shift that activates your stress response system with the intensity of a surprise attack. The whiplash between their warmth and coldness triggers your sympathetic nervous system's fight or flight response repeatedly, flooding your body with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline that were meant to help you escape immediate physical danger, not navigate the emotional minefield of an inconsistent partner. These stress hormones, when activated chronically, begin to wreak havoc on every system in your body, from your immune function to your digestive health. Your body interprets their sudden emotional withdrawal as abandonment threat, which activates the same survival mechanisms that would kick in if you were being physically attacked or left alone in dangerous territory. This isn't dramatic thinking, it's evolutionary biology. Your attachment system is literally wired for survival, and inconsistent caregiving triggers the same alarm bells that protected your ancestors from life-threatening situations. The stress response cycle becomes particularly damaging because it never reaches completion. In healthy stress situations, you experience threat, respond with fight or flight, resolve the danger, and then return to baseline through rest and recovery. But with avoidant partners, the cycle gets stuck in the middle. You're constantly activated by their mixed signals, but never able to resolve the threat because they won't engage in the communication that would restore safety and connection. Your cortisol levels remain chronically elevated because your body never receives the all-clear signal that the relationship threat has passed. Unlike acute stress that spikes and then resolves, the stress of loving an avoidant creates a sustained elevation of stress hormones that begins to affect your sleep, your appetite, your immune function, and your ability to think clearly. You're essentially living in a state of low-grade emergency that slowly exhausts your nervous system's capacity to cope. The unpredictability of their behavior is particularly toxic to your nervous system because unpredictable stress is more damaging than consistent stress. Your body could actually adapt better to a partner who is consistently difficult than to one whose emotional availability fluctuates without warning. The randomness of their warmth and withdrawal keeps your nervous system constantly scanning for patterns it can never quite identify, creating exhausting hypervigilance. Your body's stress response to their behavior often includes physical symptoms that you might not connect to the relationship. Headaches from chronic tension, digestive issues from sustained stress hormone elevation, muscle pain from constant defensive posturing, and fatigue from your nervous system's overactive state. These aren't coincidences. They're your body's direct response to the chronic stress of emotional inconsistency. The stress cycle becomes self-perpetuating because their withdrawal triggers your pursuit, which triggers their further withdrawal, which escalates your stress response in an endless loop that keeps both your nervous systems dysregulated. You're not just dealing with your own stress response. You're caught in a feedback loop where your activated state triggers their avoidance, which further activates your stress response. Your nervous system also begins to anticipate their withdrawal even during their warm phases, creating a state of anxious hypervigilance that prevents you from fully enjoying their positive moments. Your body starts to associate their affection with impending abandonment, making it impossible to relax even when they're being emotionally available. This anticipatory anxiety keeps your stress response partially activated even during good times. The most damaging aspect of this stress cycle is how it trains your nervous system to expect and prepare for emotional threat as the normal state of intimate relationships. Your body begins to interpret consistency and emotional availability as boring or wrong because it's become adapted to the adrenaline-fueled intensity of unpredictable love. This adaptation makes it difficult to recognize and appreciate genuinely secure relationships when they're offered. Hypervigilance and anxiety. When your body stays on high alert, living with an avoidant partner transforms your nervous system into a constantly scanning security system, hypervigilant for any sign of impending emotional withdrawal, rejection, or abandonment. This state of chronic alertness isn't a choice or a personality flaw. It's your body's intelligent attempt to predict and prepare for the emotional threats that their inconsistent behavior creates. But this protective mechanism comes at an enormous cost to your physical and mental health. Your nervous system develops what trauma therapists call threat detection bias. Your brain becomes so focused on identifying potential signs of rejection that you start seeing danger signals even in neutral interactions. A delayed text response becomes evidence of pulling away. A distracted conversation becomes proof of disinterest. A busy schedule becomes confirmation of avoidance. Your body is stuck in threat scanning mode, interpreting ambiguous situations through the lens of anticipated abandonment. The physical symptoms of chronic hypervigilance include persistent muscle tension, particularly in your neck, shoulders, and jaw. As your body maintains a defensive posture against emotional attack, you might experience frequent headaches, grinding your teeth at night, or chronic pain in areas where you hold stress, because your muscles never fully relax. Your body is literally armored against the emotional blows it has learned to expect. Your sleep becomes disrupted by your nervous system's inability to fully power down when it's constantly preparing for emotional emergency. You might struggle to fall asleep because your mind races through relationship analysis, wake up frequently during the night with anxiety about their behavior, or experience restless sleep because your body can't achieve the deep relaxation necessary for restorative rest when it's chronically activated. Hypervigilance also affects your cognitive function, creating what feels like constant mental fog or difficulty concentrating on tasks that don't relate to monitoring your relationship. Your brain allocates so much processing power to scanning for relationship threats that you have less mental energy available for work, creativity, or other interests. This cognitive impact can affect your professional performance and personal growth. Your hypervigilance state creates a peculiar form of social anxiety where you become overly sensitive to other people's emotional states and potential rejection signals, not just from your avoidant partner, but from friends, family, and colleagues. Your nervous system, trained to expect emotional threats from your most intimate relationship, begins to scan for similar threats in all your social interactions. The exhaustion of hypervigilance often manifests as sudden crashes where you feel completely depleted, as if your battery has suddenly died. These energy crashes happen because maintaining constant alertness is unsustainable for your nervous system. But instead of allowing for gradual recovery, the ongoing relationship stress forces you back into hypervigilant mode before you fully recharge. Your hypervigilance around their behavior often includes developing almost psychic awareness of their emotional state, mood changes, and stress levels. You become so attuned to their nervous system that you can sense their withdrawal before they've even consciously decided to pull away. This emotional enmeshment isn't intimacy, it's a trauma response that reflects your body's desperate attempt to predict and prevent abandonment. The chronic state of high alert affects your digestive system, which is intimately connected to your nervous system through the vagus nerve. You might experience stomach issues, changes in appetite, or digestive problems that worsen during periods of relationship uncertainty. Your gut literally reflects the state of your nervous system, and chronic hypervigilance keeps your digestive system in a state of stress that affects nutrient absorption and overall health. Your hypervigilant state also creates a form of emotional exhaustion that's different from physical tiredness. It's the bone-deep weariness that comes from constantly managing anxiety and preparing for emotional pain. This emotional fatigue can make even simple daily tasks feel overwhelming because you're already operating at maximum capacity just by maintaining your defensive vigilance. The most insidious aspect of hypervigilance is how it becomes your new normal, making you forget what it feels like to be truly relaxed and at ease in an intimate relationship. You lose touch with the natural rhythm of your own nervous system and begin to mistake chronic activation for being alert or aware rather than recognizing it as the stress response it actually represents. Walking on eggshells. When your body never relaxes. Living with an avoidant partner transforms your body into a constant state of defensive readiness, where every muscle fiber remains partially tensed in anticipation of their next mood shift, withdrawal, or emotional shutdown. Your physical form adapts to the chronic stress of monitoring their reactions by developing a posture of perpetual caution. Shoulders slightly raised in defense, jaw clenched in preparation for conflict, breathing shallow and controlled to avoid taking up too much emotional space that might trigger their discomfort. The hypervigilance required to navigate their unpredictable emotional landscape creates a full-body tension pattern that becomes your new normal. Your neck and shoulders bear the brunt of this defensive posturing, developing chronic knots and pain from constantly bracing against emotional impact. You might not even realize you're holding this tension until you notice the persistent headaches, the stiffness when you wake up, or the way massage therapists comment on how tight your muscles feel, even during relaxation attempts. Your breathing patterns fundamentally change when you're walking on eggshells around someone's emotional volatility. Instead of the deep, natural breathing rhythm that supports nervous system regulation, you develop shallow, controlled breathing that keeps you ready to respond quickly to their mood changes. This restricted breathing pattern limits oxygen flow to your brain and organs, creating a cascade of physical symptoms, including fatigue, difficulty concentrating, and a general sense of being unable to fully inhabit your own body. The constant monitoring of their facial expressions, tone of voice, and body language for signs of impending withdrawal creates a peculiar form of physical exhaustion that comes from hyper-focused attention. Your eyes develop strain from constantly scanning their face for micro-expressions of irritation or discomfort. Your ears become hyper-tuned to slight changes in their vocal tone that might indicate emotional retreat. This sensory hypervigilance is exhausting in ways that feel different from physical tiredness. It's the bone-deep weariness of never being able to relax your guard. Your posture adapts to minimize your presence in ways that might avoid triggering their need for space or control. You learn to make yourself physically smaller, taking up less room on the couch, speaking more quietly, moving more carefully through shared spaces. This physical self-minimization isn't conscious. It's your body's adaptive response to being in relationship with someone who treats your natural presence as potentially overwhelming or threatening to their emotional equilibrium. The performance aspect of walking on eggshells creates additional physical stress through the constant effort of managing your natural expressions and reactions. You learn to control your facial expressions to avoid showing disappointment when they cancel plans, to modulate your voice to sound understanding when they withdraw without explanation, to manage your body language to appear unaffected by their emotional unavailability. This constant performance requires enormous physical energy and creates tension from suppressing your authentic responses. Your nervous system never receives the safety signals it needs to move into rest and restoration mode because you can never predict when the next emotional threat will emerge. Even during their warm available phases, your body maintains partial alertness because experience has taught you that their affection might disappear without warning. This inability to fully relax even during good times prevents your nervous system from completing its natural stress recovery cycles. The chronic muscle tension from walking on eggshells often manifests in unexpected places. Your hands might be frequently clenched, your stomach muscles tight from bracing against emotional impact, or your legs restless from the constant readiness to emotionally flee or pursue, depending on their behavior. These tension patterns become so habitual that you might not notice them until you're in a different relationship environment, where your body begins to naturally soften and release. Sleep becomes affected by your body's inability to fully power down. When it's trained to expect emotional emergency at any moment, even when they're sleeping peacefully beside you, your nervous system might maintain partial vigilance, ready to wake and respond if their mood seems different in the morning. This chronic activation during what should be your most restorative time compounds the physical exhaustion of hypervigilant days. Your digestive system reflects the stress of constant emotional uncertainty through various symptoms that might seem unrelated to your relationship dynamics. The chronic muscle tension affects your ability to properly digest food, while the stress hormones from constant vigilance can create stomach issues, changes in appetite, or digestive problems that worsen during periods of particular relationship tension. The most insidious aspect of walking on eggshells is how it trains your body to associate love with constant vigilance rather than safety and relaxation. Your nervous system begins to interpret the hyperactivated state as normal in intimate relationships, making it difficult to recognize or appreciate partners who don't require this exhausting level of emotional management. Your body forgets what it feels like to be truly at ease with someone you love. Fight, flight, or freeze. Your nervous system under siege. Your nervous system doesn't distinguish between physical danger and emotional threat. When your avoidant partner suddenly withdraws their affection, becomes cold after being warm, or shuts down during vulnerable conversations, your body responds with the same survival mechanisms that would activate if you were facing a predator or life-threatening emergency. This primitive response system, designed to keep you alive during acute physical threats, becomes chronically activated by their emotional inconsistency, creating a state of perpetual emergency that slowly destroys your health. The fight response manifests when their withdrawal or emotional unavailability triggers your system to resist, argue, or pursue them for clarity and connection. Your heart rate spikes, your muscles tense for battle, and stress hormones flood your system as your body prepares to fight for the relationship. This fighting energy might show up as becoming more talkative when they go silent, more affectionate when they pull away, or more demanding of their attention when they withdraw. All desperate attempts by your nervous system to restore the connection it perceives as necessary for survival. When fighting for their attention proves futile, your nervous system often shifts into flight mode, where your body prepares to escape the perceived threat of abandonment or rejection. This response creates restless energy, an urge to leave the situation, anxiety that makes you want to run from the discomfort of their emotional unavailability. You might feel compelled to literally leave their presence, drive aimlessly to burn off anxious energy, or engage in escapist behaviors that temporarily distract you from the emotional threat their behavior represents. The freeze response occurs when both fighting and fleeing feel impossible or ineffective, causing your nervous system to essentially shut down as a protective mechanism. During their periods of emotional withdrawal or when they become defensive about relationship discussions, you might find yourself unable to speak, think clearly, or take any action at all. This frozen state isn't weakness. It's your nervous system's protective response when other survival strategies have failed to restore safety and connection. Each of these responses floods your body with powerful neurochemicals and hormones meant for brief, intense physical emergencies. Adrenaline and cortisol surge through your system during their emotional withdrawals, creating the same physiological changes that would help you escape a burning building or fight off an attacker. But these chemicals become toxic when activated repeatedly by emotional rather than physical threats, creating wear and tear on every system in your body. Your nervous system's inability to distinguish between their emotional unavailability and actual life-threatening danger means that every cold shoulder, every canceled plan, every moment of their emotional distance triggers the same biological emergency response that your ancestors used to survive genuine threats to their survival. This constant activation of survival mechanisms for emotional situations they were never designed to handle creates chronic stress that affects everything from your immune function to your cardiovascular health. The unpredictability of their behavior makes your nervous system's threat detection system hypersensitive and inaccurate. Because you can never predict when they'll withdraw or become emotionally available, your body maintains a constant state of readiness for emergency, scanning for danger signals even during calm moments. This hypervigilance exhausts your nervous system's resources and makes it difficult to distinguish between real threats and false alarms. Your body's survival responses often create the very outcomes you're trying to prevent. When you fight for their attention, they withdraw further. When you try to flee from the discomfort, they interpret your distance as proof that relationships are problematic. When you freeze during their emotional unavailability, they see your shutdown as evidence that you can't handle their complexity. This creates a vicious cycle where your nervous system's attempts to restore safety actually escalate the emotional threat. The chronic activation of fight-or-flight responses affects your decision-making capacity because survival mode prioritizes immediate threat response over complex reasoning and long-term planning. When your nervous system is constantly preparing for emotional emergency, you lose access to the calm, rational thinking that healthy relationships require. This makes it difficult to set appropriate boundaries, communicate effectively, or make clear decisions about whether the relationship serves your well-being. Your nervous system under siege also affects your ability to accurately perceive their behavior and intentions. When you're constantly in survival mode, neutral interactions might feel threatening. Small gestures of affection might feel like major victories, and their emotional unavailability might feel like life or death rejection rather than their personal limitation. This distorted perception makes it difficult to assess the relationship realistically. The physical symptoms of chronic fight-or-flight activation include rapid heartbeat, sweating, muscle tension, difficulty sleeping, digestive issues, and compromised immune function. These aren't signs that you're weak or overly sensitive. They're evidence that your body is working overtime to protect you from what it perceives as ongoing threats to your survival and well-being. Your nervous system siege state also affects your ability to experience joy, relaxation, and pleasure because survival mode suppresses non-essential functions in favor of threat response. This means that even during their warm available phases, your body might struggle to fully enjoy their affection because it's still partially activated and ready for the next emotional emergency. Breaking free. Restoring safety to your nervous system. The first step in healing from nervous system damage caused by avoidant relationships is recognizing that your body's responses weren't wrong, weak, or overly sensitive. They were intelligent reactions to genuinely unsafe emotional conditions. Your anxiety, hypervigilance, and stress symptoms were your nervous system's accurate assessment of a relationship that couldn't provide the consistency and security your body needed to thrive. Validating this truth begins the healing process by removing the shame that often compounds the original damage. Restoring safety to your nervous system requires making your own well-being the absolute priority, even when it means disappointing others or facing the discomfort of change. This means choosing relationships and environments that support nervous system regulation rather than constantly challenging it. Your body needs people who respond predictably to your needs, who communicate clearly about their feelings and intentions, and who don't require you to walk on eggshells to maintain their comfort. The healing process involves learning to recognize the difference between excitement and anxiety in your body, between passion and trauma bonding, between love and addiction to emotional chaos. True connection should feel grounding rather than destabilizing, energizing rather than draining, calming rather than constantly activating your stress response. When you learn to identify these physical differences, you can make relationship choices based on your body's wisdom rather than your mind's rationalizations. Rebuilding your nervous system's capacity for safety requires consistent experiences of emotional predictability and security. This might mean spending more time with friends who are reliable and emotionally available, engaging in activities that naturally regulate your nervous system, like spending time in nature or practicing gentle movement, or working with a therapist who can provide the consistent, boundaried support your nervous system needs to remember what safety feels like. Your body needs time to recalibrate its threat detection system, which has been hyperactivated by chronic emotional uncertainty. This recalibration happens through repeated experiences of safety, situations where your nervous system can relax without being jolted back into hypervigilance. Creating a daily routine that supports nervous system regulation, including adequate sleep, nourishing food, gentle movement, and stress reduction practices, helps your body remember its natural capacity for calm and resilience. Learning to set boundaries that protect your nervous system becomes essential for long-term healing. This means saying no to relationships and situations that chronically activate your stress response. Even when saying no feels uncomfortable or guilt-inducing, your nervous system's needs are not negotiable. If being around someone consistently leaves you feeling anxious, exhausted, or unsafe, your body is giving you crucial information about that relationship's impact on your health. The healing process also involves grieving the energy and health you lost to relationships that damaged your nervous system. Acknowledging this loss isn't about blame or victimhood. It's about honoring the real cost of emotional inconsistency and validating your decision to prioritize your body's needs moving forward. This grief process helps you release any remaining attachment to relationships that require you to sacrifice your well-being for someone else's comfort. Building nervous system resilience requires surrounding yourself with people who understand that healthy relationships should regulate both parties' nervous systems rather than constantly dysregulating them. This means choosing friends and partners who who can remain calm during conflicts, who communicate directly about their needs and feelings, and who take responsibility for their impact on your emotional state without requiring you to manage their reactions. Your healing also depends on learning to trust your body's signals about people and situations. When your stomach tightens around someone, when you feel the need to be hypervigilant, when your sleep becomes disrupted after spending time with certain people, these are valuable data points about which relationships support your well-being and which ones threaten it. Trusting these physical responses helps you make choices that protect rather than compromise your nervous system health. The most powerful aspect of healing is recognizing that you deserve relationships that feel safe in your body, not just intellectually satisfying or emotionally intense. Your nervous system has the right to feel calm, secure, and regulated in intimate relationships. When you prioritize this right above all other relationship considerations, you create the conditions for genuine healing and the possibility of connections that truly support your overall well-being.